Hi, it's Derek and we're back at Hitchcocks, where you can see I've got the Royal Enfield 350 Hunter with me, and we're in our dyno unit where we do all our testing on the bikes. Today I'm going to be looking at the fitment of the DNA filter kits, which apply not only to this bike but also to the 350 Meteor and to the 350 Classic Reborn. First, I'm going to go through the fitment of the DNA filter kits, and then we're going to look at the theoretical benefits of the fitment of that filter by running this on the dyno, get some before and after figures, and then we can see how they translate into hard numbers as opposed to a theoretical benefit. So, whilst I've said we will be using the Hunter 350, I said earlier these do apply to the whole J platform range. So what I'd like to do now is point out the subtle differences between these bikes and the fitment of this filter. So first off, if we take a look at the two filters, this is the stock filter, this is the DNA filter. This filter fits all three bikes. However, there is a subtle difference. If we take the Stage 2 DNA filter plates, the first thing you'll notice is for the Hunter there is a locating peg. For the other two bikes there isn't. It's impossible to mix them up anyway because the three locating points are slightly different between the two filters, so you couldn't mix them up. Another key point to make is if we take both of the filter plates, you'll notice that the original has this snorkel attachment which greatly restricts the airflow through the filter plate, and the other thing which is immediately obvious is the aperture in the centre of the original is much smaller than the Stage 2 DNA filter plate, so this plate will allow much more air through. A major benefit of the DNA air filter over the stock filter is, of course, it has an incredibly long service life. So whilst it has an initial higher purchase point, it works out more economical because it can be cleaned and recharged a number of times using a DNA air filter service kit. Now, DNA run their own tests in-house, and one of the things they do is to run a stock filter on the bike. This bike with a stock filter produces 916 litres of airflow a minute. With the full DNA kit fitted, that improves out to 1,917 litres per minute, which if you do the maths, that's almost 100% increase improvement of airflow through the bike. I think whilst we all know it's not going to double the horsepower, what it is going to do is remove that restriction in the airbox and give you the capacity to improve the horsepower. How do we know that? We can prove that later when we run it on the dyno, and we'll show you those improvements on the horsepower. So here we have a completely stock bike. It's already set up on the dyno. We're going to start it up and warm it up. I think a good point to make here is most manufacturers use an engine dyno to measure the horsepower at the crankshaft. We use a chassis dyno, and that measures the horsepower at the rear wheel. So whenever you're looking at horsepower, it's important when you're comparing percentages to know whether that's been taken on an engine dyno or a chassis dyno. So for the purposes of today, all the figures you'll see are our chassis dyno at the rear wheel. Remember, if you're going to compare horsepower, it's important to do it using the same dyno, under the same conditions, looking at the percentage changed perspective. Okay, so now we've got our baseline figures. Let's fit the DNA filter combo kit and see what differences that actually makes. So the airbox is housed behind this left-hand cover. We're going to remove this cover remove the stock air filter, and then we're going to replace it with the pre-oiled DNA air filter and the stage 2 air filter cover. Okay, so the cover is held on with 2 fixings, one at the top, one at the bottom. We're going to remove those 2 fixings. We'll then release the cover from the front slightly and then pull it towards the front of the bike, and it should smoothly slide off, giving access to the stock air filter. So now we've got the air filter cover, which is held on by 3 fixings, and of course this retaining lug, which is exclusive to the Hunter. So we're going to take the filter out. There's the filter removed. If I separate them, you can see that the hole is at this end, not that end. It's put in that way. So now I'm taking the pre-oiled filter with the hole facing outwards, and that's going straight in. That's located there. So the stage 2 cover goes on next, ensuring that you line the pin up with the locating lug there. That's all neatly fixed to there, and then the screws go in. So I'm going to place the cover back on, and this rubber grommet on the back of the cover will locate onto a lug which is attached to the frame there. So the first thing we're going to do is line those 2 up and push them together, which we've done. So the rear of the cover is now in place, and all that's left to do is to line up the 2 holes on the cover ready for the 2 fixings to go back on and place that cover firmly back in place. So now we have the DNA air filter combination in place, and we now need to run it up on the dyno and see if we've turned air into power. So the results are in. So what have we achieved? This is a 15 horsepower bike. It's a stock bike with fuel injection. So how impressive are the figures? A point to note is that here we've seen over a 1.5 horsepower change. And whilst that may not seem a big number, that actually represents over 10% improvement in the horsepower to this motorcycle. You'll know that when you ride this bike, with the power delivery and the takeaway when you're on it. From this point forward, you can start to consider what other improvements you're going to make. What you can do in complete confidence is now know that the intake isn't going to be a limiting factor into what you can achieve by other enhancements to this bike. The service kit, the filters and the plates are available either separately or as part of a combo kit, which will save you some money. The link is in the description, and thanks for watching.